Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. And today we are talking about some advice and tips as it relates to your Kickstarter rewards and some of the easy things that you can do to improve it, whether you're in the planning stages, right now you're thinking about it, or you're actually doing the rewards on Kickstarter itself, you're following my dashboard tutorial on YouTube, etc. This is some of the advice and tips that I have for you. It's coming up right after this. Okay. So let's get right into it. When it comes to your rewards, other words that we can use to describe this would be perks, rewards, reward packages, all those different things basically are referring to the exact same thing, which is what people get when they back or buy your product on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, right? So some of the things I want to mention here are applicable to both of them, and there are some different functionality differences, so just to be aware of that. So as it relates to this, I think the biggest and most important one is really just not using this as a marketing exercise, right? So marketing is obviously one of my expertise, and for me, like, you look at copywriting and you look at the words that people use to describe things, and it's literally bread and butter, like a marketing exercise when it comes to your reward tiers. So you could, for example, just say one of these products, right? And just list the product, not have very much of a description, and allow people to claim that reward. Or you could use this and look at other campaigns as well in your research. You could use this as an opportunity to do a little bit of marketing, right? So why not mention, for example, the MSRP or the percentage off or how many dollars it is off, right? There are some different best practices there when it comes to the actual price of the product, which one you'd want to do. You can, for example, draw people and backers' attention to the the incredible deal that they're getting with your actual Kickstarter campaign. So first of all would be within the actual reward, make sure that you include that kind of information. The other thing would be the actual wording of the reward. So you're gonna have like an interesting title maybe, or something that you're gonna name that particular tier. A lot of tabletop games might use something more of like a gamification kind of a title. So you can also use that, as well as when you want to give people an idea of all the great value that they're getting, make sure to include items in your actual Kickstarter rewards, right? It's a really simple and easy way to make people feel like they're getting a ton of stuff when they back at these upper tiers. And I'll tell you a little bit of a secret. A lot of people will actually set the first reward as not being the best value because they want people to kind of spill over to the middle tiers and the upper tiers when it comes to their campaign. So they try to pack more value into the other tiers. And it kind of depends on the type of product and the strategy and all that kind of stuff. So it's on a case-by-case basis. But that could be an incredible example where you can make people feel like they're getting a ton of stuff by using those items, by using the copywriting, that actual reward, and that way when they buy it, they feel like they're getting an incredible deal, and that's why they're taking action now. The next little tip or tidbit I would have for you with those rewards is to not rely on the Kickstarter dashboard interface and also the functionality in order to convey this value to the backer. And what do I mean by that? I mean, well, you could just, for example, throw up the page and use the rewards and use that functionality that's available to you with the actual dashboard. Or you could take advantage of some of the other marketing tools in your toolbox. So think about it. When someone is looking down the page, let's say there's a Kickstarter page like in front of me right now, and we start with the video. They watch the video. What are they gonna do next? Most people tend to scroll down the page to learn a little bit more. So they're looking at the different graphics, the different images, they're going through and they're seeing the different the bonuses and the functionality and the benefits and the promises and all that kind of stuff. And you could have them interrupt that experience by going to the right-hand corner with their eyes and looking at those perks and those rewards that you have and figuring out, oh wait, so which package does this have? What does this have? They have to start thinking, they have to think critically, and then they're like, okay, I guess I want this one, I'll get this one, I don't understand the pricing difference here, right? There's a lot of thought that goes into that kind of a process, the user interface. So instead, what you could do is you could have just a very simple graphic in the actual Kickstarter campaign. And that graphic can show visibly what they're getting at these different tiers or the different percentages off that they're getting, depending on if it's a super early bird, an early bird, or a Kickstarter price reward. So there's a ton of stuff that you can do there in order to not only maintain attention, because their attention is already going down the page, right? but also to convey value because it's an image. If you're inserting an image in the campaign, you have a lot more control over that to display like a mini version of the product, for example, or the colors or the way that the look and feel of the font versus just relying on the Kickstarter interface there. So that would be my next tip, is to make use of the tools at your disposal and don't just rely on that tool. The next would be to think about the actual checkout process when it comes to rewards. So throughout the checkout process, someone goes, they identify the reward, right? They then go and pick it, or they just decide to back it and then they pick it, right? They pick the reward level that they'd like, and after that, then what happens, right? So within that process, number one, they're picking shipping. So one decision for you to make when it comes to rewards and think about would be, am I going to be including shipping in the price of the reward? Am I going to be listing it on Kickstarter, for example, US versus international, US from the different countries there? Or am I going to be maybe after the campaign collecting shipping in some way using another tool that's available to me? So I actually have a video out there on YouTube going through these 3 different ways to collect shipping information. You can go and check that out. And also if you're interested, you can go check out the sponsor of the video and they'll tell you a lot more about shipping and fulfillment and all that kind of stuff. But that being said, after that happens, then there's still another screen that people can go through before they actually lock in their pledge. And that's the ability to claim add-ons, right? So this, for years, we had asked Kickstarter to make this part of their functionality and they didn't do it. Eventually, they got around to it, which is awesome, right? So it used to be you had to do it in a manual fashion. Nowadays, add-ons are built into the Kickstarter platform. So you can actually offer add-ons, which it might be like a common word for upsells, when people are checking out with their Kickstarter campaign. And in that way, you can get them, you get a chance to upsell them. There's an opportunity for you to increase the overall total order value of that individual customer and to raise more funds in the process, right? So make sure you think about, when it comes to rewards, a really simple tip is just to start to think about add-ons. Do I want to be including any add-ons? Maybe I want to have even another version of the product, or an accessory, or an additional product. You know, what do I want to include in that add-on section? Because to me, it's like a no-brainer opportunity to increase the overall order value for that particular reward tier. So that's another thing to be aware of. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description. Another tip that I would have for you is to think about how you're going to pair the products. So it's kind of difficult to kind of tailor this to everyone, but you cannot, at the time of recording this, have different quantity levels on Kickstarter. Usually the way it's done is you say like 1x, 2x, 3x, right? And depending on the package, you might also have different accessories that you kind of built in there. So you might have the core product and then an accessory. You might have a premium version of it. You might have 2x of the product. Think about the structure of the reward tiers, because you don't want to be, ideally you don't want to be going more than 6 if you can. If you can keep it under 6 reward tiers, it usually performs a little bit better. And we've done actually research on that. So it's usually better to keep it on the lower side, like to have, for example, like, I don't know, 15 or 12 or a lot. It tends to create confusion, and a confused person never buys. So when you get beyond that number, it tends to get that little bit of confusion, and people are less interested in backing right then and there. So when it comes to that, you want to kind of think about that ahead of time, which is, what are the packages? How many am I going to have? Which ones are going to be selling out, which I'm going to get into in just a second as another tip that I have for you. And how is that going to look over the lifespan of the campaign? So after these sell out, then what happens? After these sell out, then what happens, right? These are all things that, when you think about it, it's almost using the reward tiers as a product launch marketing exercise, because when certain ones sell out, what does that do? Creates the fear of missing out. Oh, I gotta get one now, right? Or if people know it's gonna sell out soon, that fear of missing out creates that urgency factor, gets them back in now, which is the name of the game. Okay, so the next tip or trick is to consider using early bird or super early bird reward tier functionality with your campaign page. And by that I mean, for example, a limited quantity reward, potentially, or a limited duration reward. And you can actually do both of these when it comes to Kickstarter. So if you wanted to, you could have a reward that's available for just the first 48 hours or the first 72 hours, right? When you go live, if you want to. And what would that do? That if you know that it's only gonna be available for a certain amount of time, it's gonna create urgency in a backer. It's gonna create urgency in a particular customer because they're like, I gotta take advantage of this now. It's the same reason that crowdfunding itself works. And I've documented this in my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, available on Audible, paperback, etc. This is the main reason why people take action now. This feeling of urgency. Because if something isn't urgent, you're probably gonna put it off. Let's be honest, like in your personal life, when something's not urgent, you usually put it off. In your career, if there's no deadlines, there's no urgency, you're probably not gonna think about it very much. Same thing goes just like if you're, I don't know, you're in school, right? And you have a paper that's due and it's due tomorrow, there's gonna be way more urgency for you to get that done. So Kickstarter itself has urgency built in with the fundraising meter and also the fundraising duration. But same thing goes with using early bird reward tier functionality as a marketing exercise in order to get people to take action now and use that to your advantage. So it could even be cycles throughout the actual campaign if you wanted to. And you could even think of this as like a waterfall, right? Where with maybe your super early birds or your early birds, they maybe sell out and then you have the Kickstarter price, or you sell out the super early birds and you got the early bird price, and maybe those are limited quantity, or you play around with maybe releasing a reward mid-campaign for 24 hours. It's like some crazy thing, right? As kind of like a gamification of the entire process. So there's a lot you can do with that, but make sure you think of it again as a marketing exercise and to think of it ahead of time, because if you do, you can plan for it and you can have these mini sales like as you're going through the actual campaign to continue to prompt urgency, to continue to get people backing and to maintain that momentum, which is kind of I think one of the things that people struggle with a lot. So there are two more things I want to include in this video, just as kind of going through just a couple of high level ones. So the other thing that I wanted to include is just touching very briefly on this idea of stretch goals. So if you've never done a Kickstarter campaign before, you can do stretch goals and release stretch goals throughout the campaign, or you could announce them in the beginning of the campaign and just have that be listed there. This tends to be very common among more of the game, tabletop, creative kind of categories in that way. And it can happen, I'd say it's like, happens with some of the design and hardware products. So a stretch goal is basically something that either after you get a certain amount of funding, it is unlocked, in that everyone who backed the campaign will get this new thing, like an option for a color or an accessory of some kind. So you could include it as like, if it's not super expensive, as something that everyone gets. Another stretch goal could be unlocking a new reward, which you actually announce that new reward. So there's lots of different things you can do, but the whole purpose of the stretch goal is that when you hit a certain amount in funding, that then becomes released or unlocked. And that kind of creates that desire to push the campaign. So your backers are going to be sharing it on social media. If they're a part of it, they're going to want to hit that stretch goal. If they really like what it is you're doing, they connect with your brand and the product you're coming out with, and they're going to help you get to that percentage. In addition, the other cool thing is that not only maintaining momentum or kind of kindling that fire, but it's also a bit of a celebration moment, and it makes people feel cool. It's like, I'm part of this campaign and we just hit our stretch goal. It feels like we did it, right? It feels almost like a team effort, versus if it's just you or you and your internal team, it's like, oh, okay, we raised this amount. That's awesome, and everyone's celebrating. Backers are like, that's cool, but they don't have the same level of feeling of like ownership over the actual campaign. So what stretch goals do are they gamify the entire process, they maintain momentum, they get people excited about going towards a particular amount, and also, which I think is probably one of the coolest parts of doing a campaign, is that they feel like they have ownership. They feel like they're part of it. They feel like they're a part of your community. And when someone feels that way, they're gonna do a heck of a lot more to help you out than when they just feel like they're a consumer, right? Or they just feel like they're a buyer, or you don't really care about them. So it's kind of an interesting way to get people to feel like they're a part of the community, which they are, and to remind them of that. So stretch goals would be another one. Last one I'm going to mention on this video, because I'm running out of time here, is releasing a new reward tier. You know, one of the cool things about Kickstarter is you can actually release a new reward tier while you are live. You can't edit the ones that you already have, but you can release a new reward tier, and you can do that strategically if you want to. So I hope that you enjoyed some of these tips that I had for you. Also, you can check out my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, if you want more information on this. Got a great version on Audible, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Go and check that out. I'll include a link down below. Also, if you want to learn more about shipping and fulfillment, so got some great links down below as well with my sponsor. But I hope you enjoyed this. Again, my name is Sal. Give me a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it. Come subscribe, and I'll see you next time.